Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out in the rain to our Indivisible California 45 meeting today. And we've got a lot on our agenda. We're going to review some of the things that we've done this month, which is pretty amazing, and talk about some of our future things as well. So, next slide. Okay, so today's agenda, we're going to talk about all the things that we did in April, including all of you. And we're going to talk about some of the lessons we learned from Pramila Jayapal's Resistance Lab. And we're going to talk about voter registration. And we're going to talk about safety awareness when we have public protests. And then we're going to talk about next steps and some actions that are coming up next month. And for those of you who know about other things that we don't have on our list, we would like to have you tell us about those briefly as well. So next slide. Okay, so we had a busy month in April. And we started off April 3rd. Our steering committee met with Derek Tran in his new office. Then on the 4th, we went to the opening of his office. And how many of you went April 5th to the one of the hands-off rallies? A lot of you, that's great. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And then we continued with our weekly Monday evening rallies right next to the Brea Mall at the corner of State College and Imperial. So next slide. Then on April 12th, Bernie and AOC came to Los Angeles. And how many of you went to that event? Wow, a lot of you. So we want to hear from you about that as well. And then on the 13th, online was Pramila Jayapal's Resistance Lab. How many went to that? Not as many, but we'll talk about that in more detail later. And then April 19th was the No Hands Rally. It was in Yorba Linda. There were others around. How many were in Yorba Linda for that? Quite a few of you. Okay, how many went to other hands-off rallies, other places? All right, I mean, not hands-off, no kings on the 19th. Okay, great. And then Derek Tran had his in-person town halls on the 21st and 22nd, just this past week. So how many of you went to one of the town halls? Wow, a lot of you. So we're going to have a lot to talk about with all the things we did. Okay, so next slide. Okay. And then I'm going to ask all of us who participated with this one-on-one meeting with Derek Tran on April 3rd to come and tell a little bit about what their experience was with that. So what we did in coordinating for this meeting is we looked at the list from the Indivisible National on what are the issues from Project 2025 that we needed to focus on. And one of the main issues that they listed was education. So there were 2 areas in education on the list of about 30 things. And we said that's what we're passionate about and what we want to talk about when we meet with Derek Tran. So I'll hand it over to Sally Zivitz, part of our steering committee, to talk about her experience.
Well, I was the weak link. They were the heavy hitters. But it was a wonderful meeting, and I'll just very briefly tell you a couple of things that I talked about. One was the House Resolution 899, whose goal is to dismantle the Department of Education. So that has not happened yet. They've fired everybody, but it still, in essence, exists. The other thing that I talked about was the education savings account, AKA vouchers to private schools and to parochial schools. And what we wanted to do was to educate Derek, if he needed education, or to at least spotlight for him what was going on and what we were concerned with.
So when we met with him as constituents, we were able to get an appointment with him. So it was a whole process. It probably took us a month and a half to get an appointment with him. He has an office that opened in Cyprus. Raise your hand if you've been to his Cyprus office. Ooh, good. If we can get in the habit of visiting if you're in town, they have regular office hours, just to get in the habit of us going to learn who their staff is, if we ever want to reach out, because that's part of advocacy. So when we met with him, our asks were for him to please educate his staff, for him to talk on the House floor, for him to also educate constituents that public schools are good. It sounds easy for me to say that, but public education has been under attack. And we know a couple Orange County local school boards have flipped to MAGA, or Moms for Liberty, which I call Moms for Chaos. They're the book banners. They want to attack the most vulnerable students, whether it's LGTB, whether it's foster kids, not funding for the homeless. There's so many things that are going on nationwide, but also in the county. So if you can please tune in, we asked Representative Derek Tran to please check up on the local school districts. When I spoke, I discussed pretty much on the ground, Placentia Urbalita School District, Capo Unified, Newport Mesa. There's a couple of school boards that are under attack by dark money. Charter schools are good, but there are a few who kind of lean right, and they want to push your morals and religion on public education, and they're inspired by Hillsdale College. So our representative, young children, so he's also a new parent in the school system, so he's also learning about all of this. We asked for him to please educate on this and speak on it, and that local school districts and the federal legislation coming down, they want to sow distrust. And as we know now, the Department of Education at the federal level is at risk. And so Debbie is a psychologist. I was a social worker. Susan was a social worker. Harry is an engineer, was an engineer with JPL. So we all spoke about our experiences, decades of experience working with youth. And Debbie was able to talk about Head Start. And what I wrote about Head Start was that, and also our representative is a product of Head Start. He struggled and his family struggled, and he benefited from the Head Start program, which serves children under 3. There is Debbie explained a lot about the National Head Start Association, and that 15% of children in the country need special education, physical, occupational transportation, physical needs, tutoring, and so this is part of a federal law, the IDEA Part 3. And so we were asking him to please work on this. He is in 2 committees. He's in the Small Business Committee, and he's dealing with student loans. So in that sense, he is aware of what's going on in that situation. He's also on the Armed Services Committee, and so he's proposing that veterans return to work, and he has a bill that is out. But as you know, Congress leans red, which means we are outnumbered. And that legislation, if he gets bipartisan support, might pass. But until November 2026, we have to flip Congress in order for these bills to get through. So it was a productive meeting, and I was able to update him about the success at Orange Unified School District when they recalled one of their MAGA school board members. I spoke about the financial deficit of $11 million at the Placentia Yorba School District. So as a parent, that's my area where my attention is going. Wherever you are, if you're a grandparent, if you're a guardian, if you have grandchildren in school, please check on your local school board members. Normally we ignore school boards because they're trusted people, but like I told Derek Tran, MAGA is infiltrating, and it's part of the Project 2025 plan, and it's happening in Orange County.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Perlson, and I worked at the Regional Center of Orange County for 19 years. So I had the privilege of going into families' homes and meeting with, it's hard to do, and meeting with individuals with disabilities. It was a real privilege to go in and talk to families and to the person who had disability. And so Derek was very interested in the numbers. Just a heads up in terms of, he was taking notes in terms of the numbers. So I said, I got some information that there are nearly 800,000 students in California who receive special ed that costs $13 billion. And federal expenditures are about $2 billion per year of that amount. So in Orange County, we served 23,000 children, adults, and seniors with disabilities. Slightly less than 80% of special ed students were English learners, so that was a need for them, as well as Vietnamese-speaking students in special ed were 4%, Korean-speaking students were 4%, and then a larger percentage was found with Spanish-speaking and others. So it gave them a sense of what is occurring in Orange County, working with the regional center. I'll hand it over to Harry. Oh, Debbie, thank you.
Okay. Actually, I'm Debbie Longenbacher, and I spoke about special education, early education, including Head Start, Early Head Start, which is a program for children under 3, and the Early Start program, which is for children under 3 who have a disability. So I talked about how important these services are, and they get much of their funding through the Department of Education, and how it's so important for these children and their families, and how these services make a huge difference, particularly for the early childhood education, because they also provide a lot of parent education and support for families. So I addressed the importance of these services, and he does seem to be our friend and be on board with this, that he realizes how important these services are. So, and my husband Harry's going to tell about his experience with the meeting with Derek Tran.
Yes, unlike Sally, I really was the weak link on this subject. All I did was I opened up by introducing myself to him, a little 2-minute biography, and my only ask of him was to, how does it go? Preserve and protect the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I liked his response. Thank you. He said, I hope you bolded and underlined the domestic in that sentence. So I was happy with that. And I think we did a great job of getting our foot in the door with him. His chief of staff will take our calls, and he knows who we are. So I think it was a successful meeting. Thank you.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is going to sound really weird because Speaker Johnson actually did us a favor. He was upset about something that was going on in Congress, and so froze the date, sent everybody home. We were supposed to meet with Derek Tran's director of his staff, but instead Derek was home a day early and met with us in person instead. So we were very lucky in that situation. So next slide. Okay. The next day, some of us went to Derek Tran's office opening. When we went the day before, they had stuff in boxes. Everything was quite disorganized, but they had a very nice reception and a place filled with people. And I know Harry and Patty went. Anyone else who went? Okay. Denise, would you be willing to, you don't want to say, okay. Harry and Patty, if you can talk a little bit, very briefly, about your experience.
Oh, I don't have much to add. It was super crowded. I think the reason no one else raised their hand is because he did not publicize it, because he didn't have room for the people that did show up. So, no, I don't have much to add. I had some of the refreshments this time. It was nice.
So, like Debbie said, we were lucky to meet with him. And he did tell us, he said, wow, it's interesting. You know, he's a new member of Congress. There's a lot of bickering going on, so he kind of gave us a little bit of inside scoop there. And all of us in this room need to contact him and share your stories. He needs that ammunition. He needs your stories about the benefits and services you want so that he can stand on the floor and say, this is what we need because somebody came up to me and told me. I know people say, but he's a Democrat, he's safe. He's not safe. He barely won by 600 votes. So it's gonna be key for us to have that relationship with him. So I encourage you to go to the office, chit-chat with the staff, don't yell at them. Be respectful and ask, do you have a comment sheet? Do you have a form I can fill out? You can also go online and there's a comment form that you can use. At the open house, it was a lot of city council members, there was a lot of associations. There were also a handful of people who were not associated with any group or organization there. And it was a good representation. And again, we didn't expect him to be at our Thursday meeting, but the next day, Friday, he was able to do that. This week, it was a congressional recess. So every month, we're gonna have 1 week when he's in the district, where he's gonna be attending ribbon cuttings and different events and speaking. That's where we can go to those events. So if you have time on your schedule, attend those events and say, hey, I'm your constituent. He'll get familiar with your face, with your cause, and so that's what we need to do. Cody Mendoza is the district director in the Cypress office, and Cody has experience working with a previous congresswoman, and so he, I think, is gonna be able to lead the district office. We also met Roxana. She's like the PR person for the AAI community. This district is 30-something% AAPI, Asian Pacific Islander. It's about a few points under 30-something% white. Then it's about 20% Latino. And so there's gonna be representation by different organizations. Catherine is a staff member, district staff member, and she's a former teacher, and they were looking at the time to hire 3 more staff. So they're still building the local office. In Washington, D.C., Tony Tran is gonna be the person if you wanna contact for policy questions or research and stuff like that. So those are the names that we kind of keep so that when we wanna push at a bill, oppose it, or support it, we can write a letter, we can write as individual constituents, and that's what this open house was for. And so I found it very helpful. And of course, a lot of it is photo opportunities and people giving each other awards, but that's part of being a legislator. The power that you have is that you're gonna be in the community where he's gonna go speak at a ribbon cutting, at a park, at a new veteran service, or at a resource fair. Those are the events that you can find him. But you also have access to his local office in Cypress. And so I encourage you to get comfortable in going, get comfortable in calling every week. Raise your hand if you use the 5called.org app. Thank you. So I hope more of us either download the application, or you can go on the website and find a topic you want to talk about. And it gives you a script. If it's about Head Start, as you know, it's currently on the chopping block right now. So call about Head Start if that matters to you. If it's Medicaid, if it's the dismantling of the Department of Education, if it's the privacy of our data from Elon Musk. Make it a habit of calling every other day or once a week or whatever you want to do. So again, he is a Democrat, but he's gonna have a huge target next year because this seat is very purple, which means it can flip, flop, flip, flop. So all of us need to build a relationship with him. Thank you.
Okay, next slide. Okay, now I saw a whole bunch of hands go up on the who went to the Hands Off rally. And Patty and I both did tabling, and Harry was one of the safety monitors during that activity. So we want to hear from all of you what your experience was.
Does anyone want to share what you thought of the event, what you did at the event, who you met at the event?
As all of you probably
Please
have been
state your
feeling-
first name.
Oh, Marcy Herman. I'm from Yorba Linda. Glad to be here. Anyway, as all of you have probably been feeling, I was pretty discouraged, but I left feeling very hopeful about things after the rally. It was just amazing to see that many people there, fighting for our democracy and all of our values. And so I really hope that more of you can attend future rallies like that.
Thank you. I saw another hand. Yeah.
Hi, I was there as well, and I'm disabled. I have to use a walker, so my advice would be, well, it starts from Pershing Square and then to City Hall. It felt like miles and miles. It really wasn't that much, but it was rough for me because I had parked where I had to go to Pershing Square. So I would suggest that if you're disabled, you park closer to City Hall and start your walk from there, or meet up with the people coming from Pershing Square. It'll be a lot easier on you. And unfortunately, my phone went dead, so you might think about bringing an extra battery charging. And I forgot where I parked. So I wandered around for 4 hours in downtown LA. Luckily, it was, it's very lively on a Saturday night. So I wandered and wandered and wandered, and finally I found it. But, make sure you know where you parked your car and put it on.
All right, so it sounds like you went to the hands-off in LA. Yeah, okay, great. And I'm glad you got your car and got home safely and that you're here today. All right. We have someone else.
Yes, hi. Hi, I'm Janelle. This is my husband, Don, and we both attended, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated. It was such a wonderful day, and seeing all the diverse folks from the community, it was just a wonderful energy, and we appreciated it so much. It was a wonderful experience.
We have a call from Zoom. That's Patty Tudor that's helping us.
Hi everyone, this is a message from Chloe Okura, and she said, "Hands Off was the first big protest we went to. My partner and I left feeling energized and hopeful."
Great. Thank you, folks from Zoom. Okay. I think we can probably take one more, and then we'll move along to the next action, because we were very busy. I saw your hand.
I didn't go to the same one. I had been to Irvine before, and it was really interesting and a great feeling of unity because of the diversity of the signs. I mean, everybody cared about everyone else's issues, and I felt good about that. On April 5th, I went to Lakewood, and there was another response of energy. We were right on Clark, by the City Hall, except that we were spread so far apart. I never found my friends who were there with me. But big turnout, and all the people in the cars were honking, waving, and many, many had signs they were holding up the same as ours. So it was just super positive.
Well, this is great. And what was so wonderful about April 5th is that there were protests all over the place. You went to one in Lakewood, you went to one in LA, many of us went to the one in Santa Ana. I know there was another one in Orange that was a local one. So there were so many. I believe there were 1,300 hands-off rallies across the nation. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, Bernie and AOC. I saw a whole bunch of hands go up for people who went to that. Who wants to tell us about their experience there?
I just had a comment about the last lady's remark about losing her car. When I went to Bernie and AOC's event, I rode the train from here. So on the weekends, you can get a weekend pass for $10 and just ride the train straight to Union Station. And that makes being on your feet a lot less of a problem. The main thing for me is I had been feeling so discouraged that being there with 35,000 other like-minded adults was quite invigorating to my spirit, and is part of why I'm here today for the first time, because as we work together, we are indivisible.
Hi, my name is Karen Dudley, and my brother Chris Davis. We went to the event with Bernie and AOC, and we were there early, so we got seats, and we were about, 15 rows from the stage, so we had really good seats right across from the speakers. But I was encouraged, a couple of things. All of the speakers that got up, they were unionized. The nurses, the teachers, they had people there from Teamsters, and that was very encouraging that groups such as union people, who I'm sure many voted for Trump, are disappointed, and were there supporting and listening to what Bernie had to say. The other thing was the music. It was incredible. But Joan Baez got up and got the crowd going, singing songs, and she even said something about a crowd as big as Woodstock, that got the crowd going and really into it. And Neil Diamond got up and got the crowd going and really into it. And that set a tone. It really set a tone. And when Bernie got up, it was just wave and wave and wave of applause and yelling and hugs. I am so glad. I'm 72, almost 73 years old, and I'm glad I was a part of that. It was a real happening. And if he ever comes back again, even if it's in another state, I just might go see him again.
Thank you. And when you do attend events, please make sure you share that on your social medias, or text it to your friends if you're not on social media. Text it to other people, because once they see you at an event, it'll make them have more courage. Someone else is going to share.
Hi, my name's Karen. I did go to the Bernie. Oh, closer, sorry. I did go to see Bernie and AOC. I wasn't lucky enough to get a seat, so I stood for about 6.5 hours or more, I think it was. I think my feet still hurt. But boy, was it worth it, because like the lady said, I was seriously discouraged before that, because we did this before. This is like deja vu. We went to the Women's March and the Climate March and the March for Science when Trump first term, and now we're back at this. But there were just so many inspirational things that we heard in this meeting. And I have to say, Joan Baez was probably my favorite as well of the singers. But of course, Bernie was just wonderful, and so was AOC. So you know, it's totally worth it, and I would go stand for 8 hours again if I had to. Also, you can't move. It's about you got about 1 inch.
Hi, my name is Linda. I was also at the Bernie and AOC event, and I think the one key takeaway that I found really important was that we can't just be against, we have to have what we're for. And I think it was AOC had a phrase of fight forward, and I think we really need to come up with the alternative message. We can't just be out there saying we don't like this, we don't want that. We have to say, what do we want, and give people a specific option to choose for and to fight for, not just, not that. We have to have an option.
And if any of you want to put this in an article, it's called a letter to the editor, or you can write an opinion piece to your local newspaper, post it on a blog, share it with folks. That way we're all getting the message in our small baby steps. So those are the things that can help. And you're right, we do need to get more bold. And with every protest, don't you feel more courageous and more unified? Even when we unite on Mondays in Brea, You might see the same faces, you might see the same signs, but that's going to attract more people. And people are going to start trickling and coming. Even though it is the same folks, we are building community here in the 45th. We are knowing who we are. A lot of this is going to help our mental health because we need to feel unified in the work that we do because it's going to be a long road.
I have been encouraged by seeing all the rallies in other states. Idaho, Boise, Idaho, and in Utah, and in Salt Lake City, yes, all around. New York was really encouraging, and so was Chicago, but Boise, Idaho, that was encouraging.
Okay. Thanks, and thank you everybody for sharing your experiences. It sounds like it was a truly wonderful, if very crowded event. So let's go on to the next slide. This was the following weekend, the No Kings rally. I saw a few hands go up for folks who attended that event.
We're going to have Patty Tudor tell us her perspective.
Hello. I was one of the organizers for that event, and I was very pleased. In the beginning, we were really a little bit nervous about how an event in Yorba Linda would go, knowing how red that district is. But it actually went amazingly well. We had between 500 and 600 people. It was very peaceful. We had the sheriffs there that were helping keep the peace. It was a very positive event, and I think we got tons of honks. I think we got more honks there than when I've been down to Irvine protesting. So hopefully that translates to new members and new protesters.
And if you ever hear anyone saying that Yorba Linda is red, no, it's turning pink. It's changing. What's after pink? Purple. So it takes time for that change. One more day.
I'd just like to comment that I'm noticing that I'm getting a lot more middle fingers when we go out. And I take that as a positive sign because it means we're getting to them.
Anyone else go to the Yorba Linda event?
My name is Linda, and I, as the rest of you, were very encouraged to see the crowds, and especially in such a Republican bastion of Trumperism, I call it. I was disheartened, though, to find out the police were, not that they were present, I was glad they were present because there was some threat of violence, but it was very peaceful, and I just was disheartened that I heard that they were ticketing people for honking, and we were just really getting encouraged by all the honking, so that was disheartening. And I didn't actually see the ticketing, but I heard it was happening.
I think there was a MAGA driver that slowed down to flick people off, and the sheriffs did stop that person.
Okay. Let's go on to the next slide. We were really busy in April. Derek Tran, our representative, had 2 in-person town halls, and anybody went to the first one on the 21st? Okay.
In front of Sally.
So Sally, can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Sure. First of all, I have to say that I feel very lucky to be part of the steering committee because you don't miss any of these things. I mean, how many of you missed the town hall because you hadn't heard about it? Yeah, that's what we worry about, but not too bad. Anyway, I made it. And Derek took the stage along with a fellow who was part of the Sha-Na-Na singing group. Any of you older people ever hear of the Sha-Na-Na? Anyway, he was terrific. He, since 2004, he had been a part of the social Security Works PAC, which is meant to preserve Medicare and Social Security. He was amazing. He knew everything you ever wanted to know about Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. But Derek has the ability to find mentors, because he's new at Congress, and he's had a big learning curve, especially in this Congress, which is, there's so much dissension. But he found mentors like Adam Schiff and this fellow whose name is John Bowser Bowman. And if you, do you know about him? Oh, what do you know? He's the baritone with the sha-na-na. That's right. And he's a wonderful speaker. If you ever have a chance to see him or hear him speak about Social Security, do. I'll be short on this, though, because we have a lot of important things to go. He said there's bad news, good news. The bad news is that they're going after Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Republicans have wanted to do that for years, but now with the trifecta, they are chipping away and chipping away. The good news is that there is a small handful of vulnerable Republicans, those who live, I guess, in the purple district, who have promised that they will vote against any cuts to these programs. The warning that Derek made, he said, yeah, they promise, they talk well, but don't listen to their words, watch their actions. And that's what we have to do. Something that the Democrats are doing, there's a congressman from Connecticut who has authored a bill called Social Security 2100 Act. Keep your eyes open for that. It's an act to expand Social Security and Medicare, and I'll read some of the things that they hope to accomplish. One is to increase benefits 2% across the board for all Social Security beneficiaries for the first time in 52 years. Yeah, let me hear. Let's see, they want to restore student benefits for up to age 26, for dependent children of disabled or deceased or retired workers. They want to end the 5-month waiting period to receive disability benefits. They hope to cut taxes for middle-income beneficiaries. There are about 12 points here, and if you're interested, I'll show you this paper. I won't go through them all. But the chances are slim, but one of the things that Derek and Bowser reiterate over and over again is that you organize, you organize, you organize. You protest, you protest, you protest. You make your voices heard, whether it's on the streets or whether it's writing letters to editor, and I know somebody who's really good at that, and she's in green and right in front of me right now. But I'm sure she'll help other people too, right? So, pardon? And yeah, my husband has been known to write a few letters himself. But we need to do that. And now that I think the Fullerton Observer is going to be allowed to go back to the library, or are they going to nix that? I don't know. But the Fullerton Observer, of course, is a great place to get information. Anyway, protest, get on the streets, and write. And thanks.
Thank you, Sally. That was a really good summary. One of the things on that bill that you mentioned that, that really stood out to me is that there's a cap on up to a certain amount of income, and then you don't have to pay more Social Security. And they were going to raise that cap so that the billionaires who are storing away all of their earnings and not paying Social Security on it will now be paying more into the system. So, let's hope that bill passes, 2100. There was another town hall the next day on April 22nd, and I'd like to hear from folks who went to that meeting.
So it was a good town hall. One thing that he did mention was there was a question that was given to him about what we can do in terms of all the stuff that's going on. And one of the things that he said was we need to get more younger people out there. And my wife and I think, are on the younger side of the people that show up to these protests. And one of the things that I did want to tell him was he needs to kind of like meet these young people where they are, right? So things like posting to Instagram, social media, TikTok, that kind of stuff, it's really important. Lifting up these protests when they're happening. My wife and I are following him on Instagram, and he hasn't posted in a while, to be honest. Yeah, we've seen Dave Min at protests, and that's another thing, is as young people, when we ask him what is he going to do when things like disregarding the Supreme Court and their orders, and what is he going to do, what we, I think, as younger people, we want to see him there with us as we're protesting. We want to make sure, like, we don't just want to be his attack dogs and, be out there. We want to see him there with us. Or at least post about it, lift it up, do something. So that was kind of one of the biggest takeaways that I had from it. I think it was a really good town hall overall. But when it came to getting younger people out, I think that there's some room for improvement there.
And those are the stories and those are the statements he needs to hear from different people in this room, whether young or older, if you're retired or if you're a parent, if you're single. He needs to hear your story. And if a few people said they haven't been finding out about the town hall, you can go to the website tran.house.gov, and you can sign up for that newsletter. I think the first one just went out this week. I haven't read it yet. But people have been asking for him to do the newsletter. Keep in mind that when we went to the open house, they did say they're still trying to get a social media person and hire like 3 people. And it's frustrating because he's not 100% set up. So it's like, the election was late, blah, blah, blah. But the more we tell him things like that, we don't see you enough. Get to work, because he does work for us.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad you're here, and me too. I went to a different town hall. I went to one that was in Orange, and it was for Young Kim. Of course, she did not show, and we had a representative from Long Beach show. And the big number one bottom line to what he said is put pressure on the Supreme Court. You can get the Supreme Court to overturn their ruling. Everything stops.
All right, thank you. Hey, I think we have time for one more comment, and then we'll move on with the program. Okay, all right, we'll go on to the next slide then. Okay. I'm sorry, what?
There are right-wing groups that are attending school board meetings in our area to have books banned from their library.
Okay, so your concern is about school board meetings and book bans and, yeah. Right, now, there are so many things that we should do, it's just overwhelming, so it's hard to pick just one or two things. But there's a lot. We've heard about letters to the editor, the Supreme Court getting our representatives to join young people, Social Security laws, all kinds of things to get involved in. So we have a few short presentations. I'm going to try to summarize the 2-hour resistance lab into 15 minutes or so and touch upon some of the highlights. And then we're going to have a presentation on voter registration and then a presentation on safety awareness. So I know there were a couple of you that said you went to the resistance lab on April 13th. And let's see, some of the things that really stood out to me is that Pramila Jayapal talked about the importance of staying strong and being consistent and having a sustained effort. And I think we've heard that from a lot of folks today as well. And also that we really want to grow the movement, increase our contacts, and with a focus on nonviolent resistance. So I've picked out a few slides from the presentation to discuss briefly. So next slide. Okay. This was one of the slides that described no government as monolithic and that they require supports from various aspects. And the triangle at the top is like the regime or the head of the government. And underneath that are pillars such as military, schools, government, business, religion, and media. And each one of these pillars has concentric circles. And so I'm going to take a look at the business one because in the last few weeks we've seen some changes that have come about to upset what some of Trump's initial ideas were. Remember the beautiful tariffs? It was the most beautiful word in the world. We were going to reduce inflation. The stock market was going to be booming. Everything was going to be wonderful. And it was going to be on day one of his administration. Well, looking at the pillar of businesses, the outer rung of that would be the public. The next rung in would be shareholders, and the next rung in would be the CEOs and the corporations. So we've seen at our protests, we've seen that people have had boycotts and not making the purchases that they normally might have as a result of these economic decisions. And so that's had an effect. And then the next rung in was the shareholders. Well, we've seen what's happened with the stock market, and especially when we look at the Tesla stocks that dropped more than 70%. Yes. And then we've seen the CEOs from Walmart and Target this week having a meeting with Trump to discuss the ill effects of the tariffs. We've seen the influence of Elon Musk or his public presence has waned in the last couple of weeks as well. So we can see that this is one of those pillars that's perhaps starting to weaken under the Trump regime. So, and I've heard this with other governments, that it's the same kind of structure for every government. And so we have to work on whichever one of those pillars that we feel we can make a difference in, and see what happens. But that was my one example. I'm trying to correlate recent things in the news with what I learned on the 13th. Yeah. So you're saying we can do the same thing with education by going to school boards and talking about those issues that can perhaps have more influence on the educational system and hopefully save some of the situation. Yeah.
Back to business in the stock market. So yesterday there was a little blip on media about the stock market starting to question Trump's mentality and calling him insane. So you can see action is taking because of what we're doing by boycotting.
Wait, so let's go to the next slide. Now, this is my favorite slide of everything that she had in her presentation. And this slide represents the number of protests over time. And the green line, the lower line, is the number of protests that there were during Trump 1.0, starting in 2017. And you saw over time that there were protests increasing. And this is for the first 2 months of the administration. The blue line that goes up rather steeply, this is the number of protests that have occurred since the Trump administration this time around, since January 22nd. And what I find particularly interesting is that this is before the hands-off rallies. This is before the No Kings rallies. This is before the Fight Oligarchy rallies with Bernie and AOC. So I can imagine that line was going up, but now it's gone up really high. And hopefully we'll continue with our protests and public demonstrations. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. A strong focus on nonviolent actions. And what we do know is that nonviolent actions are 50% more likely to be successful than any violent actions. We also know that if you continue to grow your movement, if there's a 3.5% of the population that is involved, that's the tipping point for making change in a government. For us, that's about 11 million people, would be about 3.5% for the United States. So we're working on it. It's been millions of people so far. We just need to get a few more in. So Dr. King talks about nonviolence as a way of life for courageous people. seeks to win friendships and understanding, and nonviolence seeks to overthrow injustice, not people. Now, I know a lot of people will talk about, oh, those MAGA people over there, but all of us have people in our lives, family members, coworkers, friends, neighbors, who, could be considered MAGA folks. We know they're not bad folks, we love them, but we don't love their policies, we don't love the injustice, and that's what we're fighting against. We're not fighting against people. So next slide. Dr. King indicated that nonviolence holds that suffering and can educate and transform. Nonviolence chooses love over hate and believes that the universe is basically moving towards justice. So next slide. Okay. HOPE is the acronym for Harnessing Our Power to End Political Violence. So it would really be HOPE PV. But this was an acronym that Pramila was promoting and talked about different ways that we can work on things. And using the example, using Trump and his regime as the perpetrators, and using all of us and other folks as the opposition. Talked about direct loss to perpetrators, and again, I'll go with the business theme, a loss of political support and social standing. Well, what we've seen is that Trump's numbers have gotten lower and lower and lower in the polls, that things are looking quite bad for him on every issue, if it's economics, immigration, how well he's running the government, it's all going down. Economic losses, we talked about that with the Tesla stocks dropping, and being held legally accountable. I don't know how many lawsuits there are against the Trump administration now. There are hundreds, perhaps even 1,000 by now, but many, many lawsuits are out. And then growing the opposition, which is us, and having increased support and mobilization from all of us. We want to reach that 3.5 or 11 million people to work to support a more fair and just country and government. And she also talked about increasing voter registration and passing laws that will support the things that we want to keep, like education, Social Security, and so forth. A little bit early for us to talk about passing laws, but we are going to talk about voter registration in a little bit. Okay, next slide. Okay. The HOPE model has 5 R's, and an example of something that we've seen in the last few weeks in the news, things we've heard about from immigration. So reveal, expose the injustice. Trump was talking about, at the beginning, he's going to deport all the criminals. And we know that that's not the case at this point in time. Validate the target. Immigrants are not criminals. We know that. They've come here. They want a better life for themselves and their families. They want an education, so they've come here for that. They're not criminals. So we reframe, tell a different story. This is not deportation. This is kidnapping and abduction. And just yesterday, they sent a 2-year-old out of the country, a child who had birthright citizenship, but because their parents were not not born here, didn't have citizenship, they deported this child along with. Redirect. mobilize support and avoid official channels. And this comes actually what I've seen with our legislators recently. The senator from Maryland who went to El Salvador to meet with Abrego Garcia. Right after that, there was a group of representatives, including Representative Garcia, who's from Long Beach, went to El Salvador as well. And we've had other legislators that have made an effort. And then to resist, we will not be intimidated. Just yesterday or the day before, there was the judge who was arrested after supposedly helping someone to leave the courthouse for fear that they might be kidnapped or abducted. So we see this in many different levels currently in the news. Yes. Next slide. Okay, there's a number of tactics that were described. Use your anger and your hope. Don't give in to the fear, and people will join against a fight of injustice. Try to bring people in, and also look at the scale of risk. You know, civil disobedience may be a good thing for some people in some situations. For a lot of people, that's not something that they're comfortable with. So there's a lot of different tactics that we can take. So next slide. And then they talked about 2 different kinds of actions, and we've seen a lot of the distributed actions so far. So this is where you have protests or rallies or boycotts in many areas. So, for example, the Hands Off rally, that there were 1,300 rallies throughout the country. Is a good example of a distributed action. Or some of the boycotts where there was like a one-day boycott of Amazon, or the boycott of Target for a month, would be examples of that. They also talked about mass actions, and I don't think we're quite there yet. This is like a 1 million-person march, like the March on Washington, that was a big part of the civil rights and getting the Voting Act in 1965, so something of that scale. But I don't think we're quite to that yet. So next slide. And Pamela talked about trying to be creative to make things work. One of her suggestions was to deliver petitions in person, not to rely on online petitions, having planned boycotts, and those kinds of things she felt were effective. Okay, next slide. Okay, storytelling was a big, important part of the actions that we can take. And I'd like to take an example of an action that happened this week at Young Kim's office in Anaheim. And this was the Disability Voices had a rally. There was probably about 700 people there, a lot of folks from unions, and they were very effective with their storytelling. They also had a civil disobedience where a number of folks from unions blocked the driveway and were arrested, and then they walked like a block away and were allowed to be free again. But certainly they were trying to reach young Kim and to work on her sympathies so that she would follow her commitment. She was one of the 12 Republicans who signed the letter saying that she would not support cuts to Social Security and Medicaid, but we want to make sure that she does that, and so this was the purpose of the rally, was to get her to live up to her word. So who's the most effective storyteller? In this case, it was people with disabilities and their relatives. And they had a young woman with Down syndrome who spoke. They had a couple folks with autism, had a woman who was blind. It was also a very diverse group. There was one mother who got up and spoke in Korean about her son with autism. There was a Latino family, there was a black family. So there was quite a bit of diversity with the number of folks that spoke. Talked about rehearsing the stories, make your point early and simplify and don't use jargon. And all of the speakers, it was clear that they were very succinct, got their points across. They performed very well in getting their message across, and I hope that it will be helpful and that young Kim will vote in the right way. So next slide. Okay, so I found the workshop to be very useful, very helpful, and there's going to be another Resistance Lab 201 that will be next, not tomorrow, but the following Sunday, on Zoom. And then there'll be a repeat of Resistance Lab 101 on June the 1st. And that's also on Zoom. So I'd encourage you to go to PramilaForCongress.com and sign up for one or both of those seminars. I think you'll find it informative, rewarding, and give you some ideas for things that we can do in our community here. So thank you so much, and I think our next activity is going to be talking about voter registration. So, Susan.
It is my pleasure now to introduce to you Bill Neiman, who is a partner. He's a good friend of mine. He's also our partner with Indivisible CA-45. He belongs to Swing Left Indivisible in Inland Valley. And he and Katina Voistis, another co-lead who's not here today, they help us register voters. They go to every local college here, every college, every state university in CA-45, which includes 4 of them, and they will help us register voters. And it's he's very enthusiastic about it. I've done it as well. I love it myself. It's one of my favorite activities to go and interrupt a group of students and say, hey, my kids are out of the home. I can't pester them anymore, so I'm going to ask you to vote. And I enjoy it, and to ask them what they're studying and to get a conversation going. So Bill is going to invite you and make you excited about wanting to vote. Come on up, Bill, or help students, college students, to register to vote.
Hi, I'm Bill Neiman, and I am with Swing Left Inland Valley. I'm going to start this timer to keep myself honest, but I want everybody to do me a favor. If you're able, could you just stand up for a minute? Just stand up. And then just stretch a little bit like this way, that way. And then I want you to look around yourself and find somebody that you don't know and just say good morning. Just somebody. Okay, you don't have to say hello to everybody, just one person, okay? Okay, thanks a lot. You may sit down. You don't have to, but you may. I thank you for inviting me today. Actually, Susan invited me before, but we got our wires crossed, and I didn't make the meeting. I didn't know where the meeting was held. But anyway, I thank you for having me here. Probably you know the answer to this, but why do I emphasize voter registration? And I just heard something yesterday on some sort of podcast that an investment in, the example was if you invest $1 in getting out the vote, that's going to get you the most votes this year or this election. But if you invest $1 in voter registration, you're investing for a long haul. And so this is what I would encourage you to think of is, how can we invest for the long haul? Hi, Kathy. So where do you want to do this? Ideally, we would do high schools. We would have everybody register to vote in high school. California law, believe it or not, says that students must be offered the opportunity to register. However, how many of you are former teachers or currently teachers? How many of you know that you don't always do what they tell you to do? Okay. Anyway, my point is, I'm not blaming the teachers. I'm a teacher. I'm a retired teacher myself. The problem is that they tell you to do so many things. There's only so much time in the day. Anyway, so many schools are out of compliance, and there's a wonderful organization called the Civics Center. If you're not familiar with them, I encourage you to look them up. They estimate that only 30% of 18-year-olds in this country are registered. And if you have a connection to a local high school, contact the Civic Center, and they will give you more information. It could be like another teacher there, or you are a teacher somewhere, or you have a kid in the high school. Any of those things where you have some sort of connection with the high school, it would be great that and the sad thing is, I've looked at the registrations rates for my high school, and it's really terrible. So that's just one thing. But that's not a thing that you can do. It has to be done by a student there. So that's why I say if you have a connection, that would be a way to get in. But today I'm mostly going to be talking about colleges, but there's something new that's going on that's a great opportunity to register people who are not registered, and that is all these protests we've been having. So keep that in mind, that there may be young people at these protests who are not registered to vote yet. They may be protesting and not realizing, hey, I could be registered, I could be voting. So let's go back to the colleges, because that's where I've spent most of my time trying to get people registered. The first question people say are young people really engaged? Seems like a lot of them aren't voting, right? And that's true. But part of the reason they're not voting is because they're not registered. It turns out that once you account for the ones who are registered, the participation rate is actually pretty high. Now, I'm not going to guess why some of them are not registered. We have already discussed the fact that they may not be offered that opportunity they're supposed to have here in California to register in high school, but, whatever. The point is, once they're registered, they tend to have a pretty high participation rate. Okay, so how do we do it? If we're going to register somebody go to a local college, like I've been to Fullerton College and Cal State Fullerton and Cypress and Cerritos, and recently Santa Ana. So the first thing you need to do, you need to be prepared. You've got to have your voter registration forms, pens, clipboards, and believe it or not, stickers. Even college students still like to get stickers. I don't understand it, but there it is. That's a fact. Got to have stickers. Okay, then how do you do it? First of all, you need to check in with the campus police. Some of them need you to, fill out a form. Some of them are just give you a few basic rules. And then the next part is really use what you're comfortable with. You can use the Field Team 6 approach. Hi, my name's Bill. I'm here to register you as a Democrat and help you save the world. If you're comfortable with that, great. If you're more thinking, okay, how can I do a minimally offensive thing? You might just say, good morning, I'm here to help students register to vote. Are you registered? Or I just was working with a guy the other day who came up with his own approach. He said, hi, we're here from the Church of Scientology. And once he got them laughing, then it was, he was in. Okay, so then there's some obstacles that you meet with virtually every student. Those three obstacles are headphones, cell phones, and laptops. However, what I found is those are not obstacles at all. 95% of the time, the person, whatever they're doing, they're watching some video, but it's not about school. It's not about work. It's just they're passing time because they don't believe in talking to the person that's sitting 5 feet away from them. That's just my observation. But anyway, just go up, start talking to them, take off your headphones. Next thing you know, you're in. The other obstacle is the group, and that is a person sitting in a group, and you don't want to interrupt, and that's not really an obstacle either. You just go up, stand there, stand quietly until they stop talking and they all look at you, and you say good morning, and then you give your spiel. If they don't want to talk to you, and that does happen, don't take it personally. Just apologize and move on. The second kind of rejection you might get is people say, oh, I'm not eligible, or I'm not. Yeah. And the best response is say, why? Why do you think you're not eligible to vote? Sometimes it's somebody who's from another country and they're not a citizen yet, and you can give them one of those little red cards. Has everybody seen those? A little red card that says, in case ICE comes to your door, this is what you do. I would have those available. I should have them somewhere, but I can't remember where I put them. Anyway. Okay, you guys have got them. Perfect. All right. And then, this is the one that really gets most of us. It says, I'm not interested, or even worse, I'm good. Or, my vote doesn't really count. Then you ask them, I think that, again, the right response is, why? Why do you feel that way? And get them talking, persevere a little bit, but don't badger them. Just, one of the things I came up with this last week was, this is not really the way I plan to spend my retirement either. But it is important, and that's why I'm here, okay? So you can just ask him some hypothetical questions. Do you think it's right that Trump wants to increase college costs? Do you think it's right that Trump wants to promote coal, oil, and gas instead of solar? Do you think it's right that Trump is sending U.S. residents to foreign gulags in El Salvador, which is kind of ironic? Anyway, because El Salvador, you know, the savior, right? Anyway, another objection you might come across is, I have to go to class. And then you could just say, hey, would you like a QR code? And you have a little QR code, takes you to the Field Team 6 website. They can register there. Have them fill out the form. Is it too late for me to stop the timer? No. Have them fill out the voter registration form if you get to that point. And just be aware of the tricky bits. For some reason, we always forget to fill out the part that says county. They have to fill out the part that says state or country of birth. And then lots of students don't have a driver's license, or they don't know what their social security number, or they don't have student ID. So they need to have one of those things. If they don't have any of those things, just get their phone number and or email. Sorry, my time's up. Can I go for one more minute? Okay, thank you. And then the last part that's tricky is when it says political party, because we, as Democrats, only accept applications from people who sign up to the Democratic Party, the Green Party, or Peace and Freedom. So what do we do with the other ones? Oh, you want to register to be an American independent? You realize that's a Nazi party, right? Here's your application. Go ahead and mail it in the closest circular file. Don't forget to have them sign at the bottom, okay? No, seriously, you do give it. You don't have to. You can't not give them the form. You have to give them the form, but you don't have to mail it for them. So if they want to register for Republican or whatever, just give them the form. And then at the bottom, there's a little tear off where you have to sign your name and give them a phone number, and you can just put Indivisible 45. You don't have to give your address and everything. And you just give that to them, and then you write the same thing on the part that you turn in to the post office. Okay? And then you say, okay, here's your little receipt. You should hear in 4 to 6 weeks at the most. And if you don't, this is the little ID number. We can track it down. If they don't want to complete, give me just one more minute, and 30 seconds. If they don't complete the form for some reason, just give it to them and say, okay, you've already started it, just go ahead and finish it on your own time and, turn it in if you're inclined. If they're not sure if they're registered, again, there's a Field Team 6 website that I mentioned previously. The little QR code will take them to a website they can check their registration status. And then there's another little card that my partner in crime came up with called Quick Easy Actions. It has things like the 5 Calls app mentioned, and then it also has, you guys, if you don't have something for Indivisible 45, you might think about doing the same. It has all our contact information. Then something I just heard from Swing Left Grassroots this week I think is something worth considering, and that is, if a person says, oh, I'm already registered, well, you're not finished with them. You're registered? Okay. Do you encourage your family and friends to vote? Yeah, you should do that. And then there's even, Swing Left has developed these little postcards where they say, here, if you put your name and address, we will mail this to you before the election just to remind you to vote, and you can remind your friends when you get it. And if the person is really, really keen, which is, trust me, rare, ask if they want to help save democracy, and be prepared with a little sign-up sheet to offer them more information. Okay, thanks again for your time, and thanks for indulging me. You had your question hand up first.
One of the things I find when people don't want to register to vote is they don't want to do jury duty. Okay, so I've been on jury duty, and I can tell you what can happen there and why you need to be at jury duty. Is whoever becomes the head, I forget the word for it, of the jury, the foreman, okay, they're given the parliamentarian rules, and if they don't open them, they're violated. So I've had where personal opinion, instead of the evidence presented, ruled the outcome of a case. I, of course, was the no in the room, and they polled, and I was the only no, so it didn't go very far. But you want to be there and have control over that to make sure that it is run according to the rights of everybody who's on that trial.
I have a person here that has a question or comment.
My question is, I did some voter registration at Cal State several years ago, still have some forms left, and I was wondering if those are still valid or if they change them.
They're still valid. They've probably changed them a little bit, but they're still valid.
Okay, thank you.
So are you just registering Democrats like Field Team 6?
Yeah, that's sort of the point is to register.
Right, I know.
But of course, if, like I said, if they say, oh, I'm going to register, peace and freedom, no, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Peace and freedom.
Libertarian or Republican or American Independent, you still give them the form.
Right, but I mean, do you educate them and give them the basics between the parties? Otherwise, they can vote for the other team.
I generally find it's not necessary because I do have a sheet that we give them that compares Republican and Democrat, and all they have to look at is 3 or 4 items on that list, and most of them have decided real quickly. Hi. Oh, yeah, sure.
Hi. I've done a lot of voter registration with you, and when it comes to the party, there is a spot for them to put no party preference. Yes. And 9 times out of 10, the students don't want to say, either they don't know or they don't feel comfortable checking a box. And I always say, if you want to put no party preference, absolutely fine. And that makes them often feel much more comfortable. And then you don't have to even worry about having to get into any discussion about it. So that seems to be a good aspect of the voter, of the place.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I should have said we also, of course, accept no party preference.
Can I mention, if you are speaking with a young person, whether you're doing voter registration or someone who's never registered to vote, and they say, well, I don't have time to figure out who I'm going to vote for. I use the page blvd.org. When there's an election coming up, you push it, you type it up in the computer, blvd.org. It'll give you what's going to be on your ballot, mainly progressive, Democratic candidates. There's a group of people doing research of what races are coming up. So if they were no party preference, or if they're whatever party, Green Party, they can look on there and compare the 2 candidates. or the 4 candidates if it's a primary or whatever. So a lot of them just don't know how to do that homework, and we shouldn't be putting them down for being ignorant or uninformed and say, you know, when I was first voting, it could feel overwhelming, but today with all these tools, there's a page called bluevoterguide.org. Look it up, because they're moving along, so you're not going to have it in them for more than 5 minutes. So just start where they are, and that helps them. And did you want to take any more questions, or are we?
Yeah, I just wondered, does Team 6 still register voters? Do you know? Yeah, because they've worked in Fullerton a lot, so.
If you want to write that down, it's the word field team, the number 6.org. Field team, the number 6.org.
One more thing, I do have, if you're interested in joining us for the next time we're registering students to vote, I'll pass around a sheet and you can sign up, okay?
Facebook and our newsletter when we are notified of Swing Left's activities so that you can join, because you always get training beforehand. You don't have to worry about getting the training prior. You can always go and there's training for everyone who shows up. And I have a cheat, I think is what it's called, where I've highlighted what I need to ask, and it's just my own copy that I can reference so that I make sure I catch everything that's needed, and they're good to go. I really find it very satisfying, and Bill is he's such an enthusiastic person. He can spend hours at a door canvassing. He also writes thousands of letters every election cycle for Vote Forward, I think. So he's an awesome activist. Yes, so we just hope you'll come out and try it. If you like it, continue. There'll be plenty of opportunities coming up at the fall, in the beginning of the school year, during various times where there are more students on campus. So we're just excited to have this opportunity with Swing Left. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bill. We have another presentation on safety, so this will be the next slide, and I'd like to introduce Harry Longenbacher to talk about safety.
Good afternoon. You can see here the safety team from the Santa Ana Hands Off Rally. I was part of the team, and I do this often. I've been trained for the Women's March twice, like 6 and 7 years ago. I was on safety for one of the first rallies at Young Kim's Anaheim Hills office at the Yorba Linda protest recently, and I enjoy doing it. And this team, while I've been sitting here, I've gotten about 5 buzzes on my watch telling me I have notifications from our chat group. This is developed into an Orange County safety team. But I want to emphasize the safety for our protests in Brea that we're having every week for a while. It's the backbone of our protest program. Next slide, please. So we have been warned by the police to follow the signs, rules on the signs. These are at every corner of our intersections at Brea. And, but first I want to say we have developed a tradition of crossing clockwise. That means go to the crosswalk on your left so that everyone is going the same direction. My goal is to not impede traffic too much. I want to point out that these people are at rush hour are workers, and they're going home. They're not billionaires. They're going home after a hard day of work, and we don't want to piss them off. We want them to see our signs and to know that we are protesting for them. So we would like to minimize the obstruction of the traffic. And the rule that the policeman pointed out to us is that you only start when the light is white. There's a little guy walking. Oh, this doesn't work too good on the screen. But you don't have much time. It's a huge intersection. And you have to start, if you're going to get across before it turns red, especially you have mobility issues, you have to start when it's white. And then you'll see next it says, don't start when the light is flashing. You're supposed to wait until the next cycle. And you're not going anywhere anyhow, right? You're just going to the next corner and the next corner. So please don't start too late. We also ask that you keep the ramps clear. There's little ramps for bicycles or wheelchairs to go on. And most of all, we want you to stay safe. We don't want to instigate any road rage incidents or anything like that. And like I said, have sympathy for the commuters. Okay, next slide, please. So when I go to host an event, like our protest or other protests on Mobilize, on Indivisible, they give me advice on safety. And I want to summarize some of what they tell us. Core principle behind all Indivisible events is a commitment to nonviolent action. And we expect all participants to seek to de-escalate any potential confrontation. And the host, that's us, are expected to ensure that all participants in our events uphold this commitment. Next slide, please. And they say they recommend that all participants review the safety and security resources, which are rather extensive. They talk about a lot more than I'm going to talk about here. And you can find it at indivisi.org/safety. I hope you can remember that. They talk about not only safety on the street, but security for your phone and your privacy, and how to deal with ICE and a lot of topics that I'm not going to go into. So please, if you're interested, look at that webpage. Next slide, please. Okay, and these are some of the things they emphasize, and you'll see a theme here probably over and over. Non-engagement with hostile individuals. If you're approached by someone who is aggressive, avoid engaging and keep a safe distance. And in our case in Brea, most often where people are hostile to us is from their car. So if they stop in traffic and start flipping you off and yelling at you, don't talk to them, don't look at them, don't engage with them, ignore them until they feel stupid and move on, okay? If you argue with them, they'll sit there and argue with you, and it's gonna cause trouble. Again, remain calm and be observant. Stay aware of your surroundings. I keep hearing this from them, and I'm not sure what it means. I'm always trying to look around and be aware of my surroundings. But we've been pretty lucky this time around in Trump 2.0. We haven't had too many counter-protesters. We used to have horrible ones in Brea that caused a lot of trouble, but not so much now. Okay, and when you're trying to de-escalate, maintain a non-threatening stance. Use calm body languages, maintain personal space, never touch anybody, don't look angry, use neutral facial expressions and gestures, and keep your hands low so you're not threatening to anyone. Next slide, please. And you should know your rights when you are protesting. Public spaces are protected for public demonstrations. You can legally photograph or video anything in plain view, including police actions. And this can be useful if trouble does develop. Notify law enforcement of our plans. We always do this. We've been doing this for 8 years. We have had a good relationship with police in Fullerton and Brea and Yorba Linda. They generally, especially the police chiefs, want to keep the peace. They don't care if they disagree with us. But as a caveat to that, I want to note that in Yorba Linda, the police chief is a woman. It's the sheriff's department, but she's called the chief of police in Yorba Linda. She remembered me from 6 and 7 years ago when we had a protest when Sheriff Joe Arpaio showed up. We protested at his event. We had a protest at the Nixon Library, and she came, and she was the good cop. She showed her training. She tried to make friends with us. She had us take a picture of her with our giant blow-up Trump chicken, and just tried to be real nice. And she's now the chief of police. And I saw her there. She saw me directing traffic, and she gave me a thumbs up as she drove by. But we have had other members of the police department be more hostile towards us. In Brea, the chief of police told us, if those counter-protesters come up to you and put their bullhorn right up your ear and yell at you so it hurts your ear, that's assault. And you should notify the police and say, this guy's assaulting me. So one of our protesters had that experience, as many have, and went over to a cop, the nearest cop, and said, this guy's assaulted me. And he goes, oh no, that's his freedom of speech. We're not gonna stop him from doing that. And in Yorba Linda, there were cops giving people tickets, as you heard, for excessive honking. And there were cops yelling at people, admonishing people to get across the crosswalk fast. And you have very little time, and people with limited mobility that are going slow can't get all the way across. It's timed for cars. It's not timed for people. So don't be too surprised if you come up against someone like this. But don't argue with them, and that's a good time to think of de-escalation. There's not much you can do about it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and we've never had this happen, but if they declare it to be an illegal assembly, unlawful assembly, they have to follow rules. And when they do it, please comply calmly if that ever happens. They must provide a clear dispersal order. They can't just start arresting you when they decide it's time to do that. They must provide sufficient time to leave. If they don't, you should demand your right to leave. They must provide a way to leave. I went to a training with a woman who had, she said when Trump got elected, she went and blocked the 405 with a whole bunch of people. And the police surrounded them and said, this is an unlawful assembly. But they were surrounded. And she went up and said, you have to give us a way to get out of here, you know. And they said, okay, we'll open up, everyone who wants to leave, go out that way. And I was impressed by that. So you don't have to be afraid when this happens. You can stay calm, and they have to give you a chance to leave. So, just back, I want to read that last sentence. I don't have notes. Again, this is part of the theme. Stay calm and composed. They repeat this over and over in the training they give. Move slowly, avoid arguing, and don't risk this, please. Okay, thank you. Next slide. And I have this QR code taped onto the table out in the lobby. If you want real training in safety and de-escalation, use this video that we use for the Santa Ana rally. I shortened it by 8 minutes that were really irrelevant and put it on our website. And it's 54 minutes, and it goes into other aspects of safety and de-escalation that I'm not covering. I highly recommend it. And I hope we can recruit more people to help with safety and help us maintain safety at our protest. And you may even end up joining the signal chat for the safety team in Orange County and providing safety at other events across the county. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Harry. I know there's a clipboard going around for if you're interested with the voter registration. And you had a question?
Yeah, the National Lawyers Guild in Los Angeles does monitor demonstrations and protests. And they have legal observers. I've served as a legal observer on occasion. And what our job as legal observer is, if there's an incident, you don't get involved in it, you get the names and contacts for a witness or two or three. So there are other witnesses that, in case it amounts to something, you can have the officials call on.
Yeah, I want to comment that that is very important. I've had the legal observer training also, and I enjoyed it. And that's where I met the woman who talked about blocking the 405 and then manning her right to leave so she wouldn't lose her law license by getting arrested there. Thank you. Any other questions? I didn't ask for questions, I'm sorry. Okay, oh, yes. Yeah, that would be part of legal observer training, but yes, you can video, you can take pictures. One thing they emphasize is making note of who the police are. So when you want to try to figure out where they're taking someone that they're arresting, you look at the color of their uniform, their emblems, and so you can identify them. And of course, if you take pictures or videos, that. Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you.
I have one thing just for the Brea protest. I would advise everyone take a couple steps back off of the curb. One of the last times there was a gentleman who was like practically hanging in the street with his sign. Also, if you're on the side where the cars are turning towards you, you see them coming at you, be very aware. They can be very distracted as they're trying to reach the signs and perhaps pop up onto the curb or get a little too close. So just some physical safety reminders.
Yeah, that's a good point. If everyone lines the corner and is holding up signs, they're blocking the view. So you've got someone running out into this crosswalk over here and someone trying to get through the intersection on their green light, they can hardly see them. So that's a good point. Thank you. Yeah. It's dangerous, and it can be dangerous, and there have been close calls. One other thing I want to mention is to be safe when you're leaving. We've had a couple of incidents. Someone told me in Brea, when they went back to their car alone, someone yelled at them, "How much are they paying you?" And she responded, "They're not paying me." But then the guy got angry and starts coming over toward her, and she got in her car and locked the door, and she was frightened. And when Debbie and I were in Yorba Linda, when we're in a big group, we're safe. But we're walking through the parking lot afterwards, and some guy yells at us, you're in the wrong town. And of course, my response would have been, not today, I'm not, but we just kept quiet. He left it at that. Okay. It's time for us to clean up. And
actually, we have a few announcements of things coming up. And if you're interested to volunteer with safety or with computer, website, email lists, talk to Harry. If you're interested in state legislation, talk with Susan. So our last slide is some, but not a complete list of things that are happening next month. And if you have things that you'd like to announce, we'd like to have you stand up and announce those as well. So May Day, May 1st, is a big day of action for labor. And there are a couple of different activities at the Orange City Hall at noon. There will be a protest at El Centro Cultural de Mexico in Santa Ana, 3:30 to 7:30 p.m. is another event. And I understand that UC Irvine in Orange is having a protest and rally from 10 to 2 as well. May 4th is the Resistance Lab 201. And also on May 4th, May the 4th be with you, 2 to 4 at Irvine City Hall. May 17th, there will be a rally at the Nixon Library, and this is with Indivisible in collaboration with several organizations in the area. May 21st is a postcard party, and I'll give the mic to Marlene in just a second for that. May 31st will be our next meeting here at 11, and we're going to continue our rallies on Mondays right in front of the Brea Mall at 5. So I'll ask Marlene to talk about her postcard party.
Wait, one more thing. Next slide, please. So I was up till midnight making this list. This is a more complete list. And I have printed out 60 of these flyers, and they're on the table in the lobby that you can get as you're leaving. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Marlene, if you want to come tell us about your postcard party, and I think there were some other people that told me about events coming up.
So we're going to wrap up the meeting. If you can come and have a 1-minute presentation about something you're organizing, something you want to do, please come up and line up, and then we'll hand you the mic and take turns announcing things.
Okay. Marlene?
Hi. So not everybody wants to go out and rally, and sometimes people want to do other things as well. So we are doing a postcard party. We're writing postcards to young Kim, letting her know how we feel about her supporting Trump's agenda and that we think she should have a town hall. And so it'll be at my house. I will leave these flyers. All the supplies are provided, you know, the postcards, the stamps, the pens, and so on. So it's on May 21st at my house in the evening, and I will leave these. If you want to sign up or come, just please RSVP, and my address will be provided to you. So thanks.
And in the front table, so come on forward if you want to make an announcement. In the front table, we have the list of what the screen is telling you of different ones. May Day is May 1st, which is this Thursday. Diane, come on over.
I just wanted to bring up the issue that's going on in Fullerton, where about a month ago our city council passed something that restricted freedom of press and speech by banning essentially newspapers that have always been in city government buildings. The only place it's allowed right now is in the library, back, not in the front, but way in the back where the newspapers are kept. So May 6th, it's on the agenda to rescind it. And if you feel strongly about it like I do, please contact by email, coming to the meeting, calling all the city council. And basically, what the council did is they took a stance. They had a threat from a blog, and they allowed that to get rid of the Fullerton Observer, which has been there for like 40 years, and the Daily Titan from Cal State Fullerton. And it's going to really restrict people who don't have access to those easily, and so we're hoping to get it rescinded. Thank you.
And for Fullerton City Council, you can also Zoom into the meeting, make your public comment, so consider that. Any other 1-minute announcements? Come forward, please.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know that I am transitioning. We all have transitions in our lives. And so I am at this time in my life where I have misgivings, but I've health issues, even though not all people who wear a hat have had cancer, just keep that in mind. But my husband died over a year ago, and that, the house is too big and expensive to maintain, so I'm moving up closer to my daughter who lives up in Thousand Oaks area. But Indivisible is always my people, so I'll find an Indivisible group and belong there and be active, maybe run into you at some rallies or protests in LA. But I, as a liaison to Stay Strong, I would really appreciate if I could leave it with somebody in strong hands who would like to just 2 hours a month dedicate themselves to attend a Zoom call with all the statewide Indivisible groups. We learn so much from other strategists and organizers and what's going on in the state of politics. And so if you have any interest, do reach me. Or if anybody joined our group that was over here last time, if you had any interest, please let me know. But anyway, just keep that in your mind. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sorry I won't have a chance to get to know all of you, but very nice to see such energy returning to Indivisible CA-45. So thank you for being here.
I'm Joel Summers on Garden Grove, but on the lines of seniors wanting newspapers, nothing. They're trying to come into the 22nd century and get rid of newspapers. They need newspapers, I live in a retirement building where about 40% don't speak English, 50, 60% senior. They're all seniors. Google Translate, if you haven't used it, or try to use it a lot more to get to your neighbors that don't speak English, have the exact same sentiments that we do. They want to know what the English-speaking people are doing about this. And practice using Google Translate wherever you possibly, even when you publish.
That's a good point. We have George here.
Hey everybody, my name's George, and I'm working on a concept called clock parties that is inspired by these large rallies we've been having to fight against Donald Trump. And the concept of clock parties is to meet at the edges of congressional or assembly districts, and mainly assembly districts, because I don't know if you know, the state party convention we elect people that actually choose the people that are elected into office. So here in California, that we haven't actually had a real election in a very long time. The election happens at the party convention where the money is distributed by the people we elect. So the idea of the clock party is to bring together people from neighboring districts, so like 45, this is a great district because Derek Tran, is a place we need publicity, with, the area around. And the goal is to get the elected representatives, the delegates for the party conventions, and the public all in one big place where clubs can fundraise. We can have like free things like food and stuff like that. So if you're interested, come to me after the meeting. I can give you my website. We're going to try to do this all across the state and flip our red congressional districts. So yeah, let me know if you want to get involved. And thank you all for your time. It's not a good.
And we have Patty Tudor.
Hello, just one other way that you can help this fight is by using economic means, and there's a good app called Goods Unite Us. Has anybody used that? Goods Unite Us. And what that does is it shows you by either product or company is one aspect of it, and the other is politician, national level politician. And you can look up a name of something or somebody and see how much they donated to Republicans versus Democrats for the goods, and companies as well. Like you could look up, for instance, Coca-Cola. And then on another tab, it shows national level politicians, and you can look them up and see who they got, who gave them donations. So this is another way you can fight. If you want to decide who to boycott, it's a good way for you to find that out. Thank you. It's it's an app you download. It's called Goods Unite Us. Goods, Goods, Unite Us. Okay?
Your wallet can speak. We have Jay.
Hi, I'm Judith Kaluzny, otherwise known as Jay, and I want to inform you that I have that corner, if you all remember where the Coyote Hill sign used to be, well, the people that put it up built a nice 2x4 structure that's still there, so it's available for signage. And if you have any meetings with congressmen or such, there's a huge amount of traffic every morning on their way to work. So contact me if you need a place to put a sign. Oh, whatever you want. I mean, it's just go by and look at the structure, and you could have huge or little. The corner, it's actually my address is 400 North Malden, and it's the opposite end of the block from Bank of America. No, it's right downtown here, right down the street, 2 blocks from here. And the Coyote Hill sign was there for years, it seems like, but they left the structure. It's a very popular corner at election time. Right now, I just have one small sign that says, "Fight Truth Decay."
So if you have a large sign, you can use that as a billboard here in Fullerton. Any other announcements? Debbie?
Well, I think, unless there's no other announcements, I think we're finished for today. On your way out, please pick up our brochures for our weekly rallies, the information on the safety training that Harry listed, the list of actions that are coming up next month. We have brand new Indivisible 45 buttons. Please pick up one of those for yourself as well. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you out in the streets.